So as we move into our third project for my research methods class, I'm very excited to note that we have 3 students instead of 1 registered for the class right now. And so the class size has tripled, which is always an exciting time. So this project, we're going to be looking at helping the students learn different interpolation schemes. So here we're going to give the students a data set. So let's work out the instructions here. Below is a data set. There is a set of data from a something experiment conducted by somebody. I was thinking this would come from our modern physics lab, but I forgot we're not offering our modern physics this semester, so I need to find another source. I'll go to my experimental colleague to see what they're planning to do this semester. I'm not sure why this suddenly turned bold. Oh, apparently doing blanks makes it bold. What if I do a latex slash? 1, 2, 3. Does that work? Okay. Below is a set of data from a blank experiment conducted by blank. So I'll fill that in when I have a better idea of what the experiment is. If I can't get one from my colleague, then I'll just, I'll take one from my intro class, or I'll take one from a paper or something like that. So then we'll have the data set goes here. Let's see, let's call this. Here is your data set. How do I want to set this up? I guess I should go ahead and set this in a list. So how do I have that set up in my interpolation codes? Let's go with, I think I use the same convention on all of these. I believe it's just a list. Yeah, it's just a list called data, and then you append the X and the Y, and I think that goes all the way through to the cubic spline code, because I wanted them all to match. Yeah, it's just data. So we'll say data equals, let's have it go like this, and then we'll have data equals, and then we'll have the first data point. I think I have these as ordinals. Yeah, so just have one comma the other one, and so we'll have X comma Y, data equals X comma Y, etc. Hashtag, etc. There we go. I won't compile this obviously yet because I don't have X and Y set up yet. Oh wait, I don't want to have data equals. I want to have data dot append. There we go. Otherwise, it's just recreating the same list of data over and over again. Oops, what did that do? Oh, cool! I can highlight over a bunch of text, hit a parentheses, and it'll put a parentheses around that. Well, if that's the case, then what I really want is this. There we go. Oh, data dot append. There we go. I should have just copied and pasted that line. Oh. All right, so learning objective 1. Describe your goal, should just be singular, for interpolating this data set. All right, below is a set of data. Below is a set of data from an experiment conducted by blank. Your goal in this project is to perform an interpolation of this data to produce a nice graph. Oh wait, I just told them their goal. Let's see, in this project, you will perform an interpolation of this data to produce a graph. Let's just say to produce a graph, there we go. Learning objective 1, describe your goal for interpolating this data set. We're going to say replace, think about this experiment and the data it has produced. Ooh, you know what we need to do? We need to have a graph of this data here. So let's have, is there a way to graph is there a way to just graph the data? Okay, you just say position equals data. So you just say position equals the list. Okay, so what I want to do here is fun plot here, copy and paste. Let's actually call this data plot since it's not a function. It's data that we're entering. I mean, it is a function. We're not generating from a function. Color equals color.green, and that means I need to have a graph fast equals false. There we go. I think that's what I want to do, right? Graph fast equals false, and then of course I need to put in the Python call up here. Need to have, I think it's just, oops, too far, Brian, too far. I think it's just import vPython. Let me double check on that. All right, it's actually from vPython import star. We have vPython as our kernel. We'll probably have to start the kernel a couple times to get it to run, but I'll let the students worry about that. Let's see, learning objective 1. Describe your goal for interpolating this data set. Think about this experiment and the data it has produced. What would you like to learn by interpolating this data?
But Professor, isn't the word data plural?
I guess I should say this data set. I think that's vague enough, and we'll have a discussion in class about what you might be able to learn from a data set, from interpolating a data set. Because they might want to extrapolate, they might want to interpolate. I mean, you really shouldn't be extrapolating, but I think that's sufficiently vague for right now. Replace the text of this markdown cell with a discussion of your answer. There we go. Learning objective 2. Select an interpolation method based on the stated goal. Let's see. How do I tell them to do that without just repeating the learning objective? Identify an interpolation method that you believe will help you meet the goal you described above. And then let's say your answer, which we will call your goal. Let's put goal in bold. There we go. There are lots of ways to get bold, we're learning. Let's see. Select an interpolation method based on the stated goal. Identify an interpolation method you believe will help you meet the goal you described above. Explain how this method will meet your goal. By the way, it's okay to be wrong. Control Enter. There we go. I need to say replace. I think this is the last one where I'm going to say replace the text of this markdown cell, because I think by now they'll get the idea that that's what they need to do. Replace the text of this markdown cell with an explanation of how this method will meet your goal. Your goal. There we go. Learning objective 3. Use the select interpolation method to interpolate the data set. In the code cell below, paste the code that implements your selected interpolation method. Make sure to only paste the interpolation method, not any code that rewrites your data set! Exclamation mark. Just a warning, because in all of these codes, it generates the data. So you would ignore this part and you would grab everything basically from here down. If you were doing cubic spline, if you were doing linear, you would grab everything from here down. Right? Yeah. So you ignore everything that writes the data. Okay. Let's see here. Make sure to paste only the interpolation method, not any code that rewrites your data set. Run this. Actually, let's just have run this code. Make sure it produces a graph of your interpolation scheme. There you go. Copy and paste interpolation method here. I guess I call it method everywhere else. Method. Learning objective 4. Evaluate your selected interpolation method. So here we're going to say examine the graph of the results of your interpolation. I guess I could just say evaluate the graph of your interpolation. There we go. Does it meet the goal that you established? If so, what do you learn? If not, I'm not sure that students understand if so and if not. So let's say if it does meet your goal, what do you learn? If it doesn't meet your goal, why do you think it doesn't? Replace the text of this markdown cell with answers to these questions. All right, let's do a little bit of formatting here. If it does meet your goal, what do you learn? If it doesn't meet your goal, why do you think it doesn't? Okay, so this is definitely the shortest one so far in terms of instructions, but it's long in terms of what the students have to do. There's a lot more mental work for the students to have to do. So let's hit Control-Enter in everything that we can in all the markdown cells, and let's give it a read over. Below is a set of data from a blank experiment conducted by somebody. In this project, you'll perform an interpolation of this data to produce a graph. From VPython import star, here's your data set. And I guess I'll have them all do the same data set. I think that makes sense. Graph fast equals false, data underscore plot, etc., etc. Learning objective 1. Describe your goal for interpolating this data set. Think about this experiment and the data it has produced. What would you like to learn by interpolating this data set? Replace the text of this markdown cell with a discussion of your answer, which we will call your goal. Learning objective 2. Select an interpolation method based on the stated goal. Identify an interpolation method. Oh, I need to give them a source here. From, and give me just a second to get my playlist. All right, I've got my link for my playlist. There we go. Identify an interpolation method from here that you believe will help you meet the goal you described above. Replace the text of this markdown cell with an explanation of how this method will meet your goal. By the way, it's okay to be wrong. Let's be more specific with that. It's okay if your selection turns out to not accomplish your goal. To not actually accomplish your goal. And we'll go over it in class. I envision going over these in class in addition to giving them the link to these videos. Let's see. Learning objective 3. Use the selected interpolation method to interpolate the data set. How about, because we've got interpolate there twice. Apply the select interpolation method to the data set. There we go. In the code cell below, paste the code that implements your selected interpolation method. Make sure to paste only the interpolation method, not any code that rewrites your data set. Run this code. Make sure it produces a graph of your interpolation method. I guess of your interpolation results. There we go. You're not really graphing the method. That's kind of an abstract idea. Learning objective 4. Evaluate your selected interpolation method. Examine the graph of your interpolation. Does it meet the goal that you established? If it does meet your goal, what do you learn? If it doesn't meet your goal, why do you think it doesn't? Replace the text of this markdown cell with answers to these questions. Okay, awesome. I am happy with that. So again, this template will be available in a link in the description below. I'll also update this once I get a data set so that you can have a data set to just take and run with. You know what I guess I also should do is post a reflection video at the end of the semester about how these projects went. And maybe make some updates to them as well. So so we'll have an adjustments video based on your comments, and then I'll have a reflection video at the end of the fall semester. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.